Hi, and welcome to Facebook Live Real Life Edition. It is Thursday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I came up with my own topic tonight since nobody had any clue as to what they wanted to listen to. So you can listen in, you cannot listen in, totally your choice, but I do find that the topic tonight is something that most people do need to talk about because most of us struggle to actually stay committed to our goals that we're looking at accomplishing. So I just want to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to tell you what kind of brought this on. In the past 2 weeks, I've actually had 2 people that I've taken time to book a goal assessment, which I do for free, and they just didn't bother to show up. You know, I do remind people the night before just to make sure that people are coming, and I'm going to tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves are people who are wasting my time. And so, you know, I came down to the fact that I understand that we all have lives and we have craziness, and things happen. I get last minute, people get sick, but, you know, I struggle with people who, and it's not even the commitment, but just kind of the lack of respect of following through and at least letting me know that, hey, I'm not going to show up. So if you're going to drive clear across town to meet with me, so that's kind of what sparked today. You know, I get it. Like, I know that a lot of us struggle to be committed to our goals and to really reach the end or reach the results because things happen. You know, we're human. We have a life, and sometimes those obstacles really can play a big part of, you know, making us discouraged. So let's talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about what commitment is. Now, I know Thursday nights, my feed is a little bit different than my Wednesday night. Wednesday night tends to be more geared towards health and fitness, answering questions. And tonight is just more of like life, dealing with life. And so, okay, Bruce, you're saying it's a touchy, you know what? Yeah, you know what? Bruce, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I picked this topic because I'm a little frustrated with people and their follow through. And like I said, I know that it happens, and I know that I drop the ball sometimes, but I at least usually let people know that I'm not coming, I'm done, whatever the situation is. So let's talk about what being committed is. Being committed is a willingness to do whatever it takes to fulfill and follow through with a responsibility. You know, sometimes it's a choice, and sometimes, like becoming an adult, you know, it's thrust upon us. And as someone with adult children I'm not quite sure when I became an adult, and that made a requirement for me to be committed to that. But here's the deal. You know, I became an adult. I chose to have children. I'm committed to being a parent. I find that that is really something that's important. I'm really seeing a lot in life, and these days especially, where people are choosing to make some pretty big decisions, and then not following through with their choices. I'm not gonna. First of all, I'm not gonna point out people. I don't do that. But you know what? I do get frustrated watching, you know, the consequences of people making that choice and then not dealing with it, such as, you know, again, people choosing to have babies and then not taking care of them. You know, that's a commitment that you made when you made that decision. Enough said, right? So commitment is really a big deal. And I just told you what my biggest pet peeve is. Well, one of them. Actually, my first biggest pet peeve is a lack of respect. You know, and that kind of plays into this a little bit. But like I said, follow through. You know, if you commit to doing something, flip and show up, or just don't commit to do it at all, because first of all, it kind of shows a little bit of your character, and that's kind of a big deal. Do you want people to respect you? Do you want people to know that you're a person of your word? You know, that is something that I really truly hope that I am able to you know, protect that value that I have. So a couple of things. I know that commitment can be based on some values, things that we grew up with. You know, again, we all kind of come in with a different perspective of life, a different experience. And so I get that our choices are going to be a little bit different. Case in point, my idea of clean and someone else's idea of clean may not be the same, because growing up, now I'm not ridiculous. I do choose my battles, and I have 5 kids, so I get that not everything can be perfect and spotless. But you know, having had renters of some, you know, houses that I've owned in the past, my idea of clean and their idea of clean was just not the same. And so again, keep that in mind, that I get that, you know, somebody's idea of commitment and my idea of commitment might be completely different, but in general, it just means a willingness to follow through when you've made a decision to do something. So the biggest issue that I think that we're dealing with is, you know, really self-commitment, right? Oops, I'm kicking things off the table. Because a lot of times, you know, we make that choice, and if we're not accountable to someone, or if we're not fully committed, a lot of times it's really difficult to follow through. So I have some tips for you in just a second, because I know that it's kind of a difficult one. Commitment has become, I can text. Yeah, it does. And technology is making easier for the non-committed people. I think that people their true colors are gonna come forth pretty quick. That's why I do a goal assessment with my clients. When I'm checking to see if I'm willing to work with someone, it's kind of a two-way interview. When I'm working with a new client as a personal trainer or a health coach, I want to know that, first of all, I want to know that we jive, but I'm also going to ask some questions, because it does take, even though they're paying me, yeah, that's one part of it. But if they're not going to do what it takes and they're not going to follow through, it's probably not something that I'm going to be willing to work with. Whether or not I take their money, that's a completely different part of the story. I want to make sure that if I'm taking my time, because I do, you can ask any of my clients, it's not just the hour that we're together when we're working out, it is I allow them to text me at any time. It's the fact that, I'm aware that it's not just the workout. There's going to be some emotions that I'm going to have to work with. And I'm committed. When I take them on, I am committed to working with them. So, that's very, very important to me, and I expect the same respect. So I think that one of the biggest reasons that we fail at commitment is that as human beings, we resist change. We like comfort, we like simple, we like stability, and it's so much more easier to come back to the comfort of what we were doing before than it is to commit, especially to something new. But of course, you can't change if you can't grow if you don't change. So part of it is being willing to step out, partially in faith that you're going to be able to get where you want to go. But if you trust the process, I know we hear that a lot in the fitness industry, but it's true. You got to kind of trust science. You got to trust, put it out there. What you put out will come back to you. So that is important. And commitment does require discipline. It's so many of us, we're so excited in the beginning and we feel good and we want to be part of whatever this goal is, and then as soon as that feeling leaves us, we tend to become all of a sudden uncommitted. But commitment requires discipline, and discipline is doing it even when the feeling has left us. That's part of reaching a goal. If your goal doesn't scare you, it's probably not big enough, but be willing to do what it takes. So I have some tips for you in just a second, but on a website called youhaveacalling.com, it works for me. They have 3 keys to really focus on being committed. And number 1 is, commitment requires sacrifice. It does. Just a case in point, I no longer compete, but as a competitor, there are certain things that you have to be willing to give up. Granted, it's temporary, but, you give up things like goodies, drinking with your friends, times where, you're going to have to dedicate some time to your workouts, your exercise. You have to be committed to eating well. So definitely, there's some loyalty there, whether it's a goal, whether it's a commitment to your significant other. It's kind of all the same. You have to be willing to give up a lot of other things that might sound great, but commitment is commitment. So sacrifice is part of being committed to it. Number 2, you have to have a purpose. For those of you, if you have started your own business, if you have a huge goal, you know that you have to be passionate about it in order to stick with it. So, you can't come into something half-assed and think that you're going to be able to follow through or expect somebody else to be able to motivate you. That is not your job. That is not somebody else's job. Even as a coach, I am a coach, not a babysitter. Can I help my people if they're really struggling? Yes. Is it my job to convince them that it's absolutely their job to do it? No. Again, I don't babysit. We're all adults here. So having a purpose makes it much, much easier to be able to stick with it, because you have to be fully committed to that. Not only that, but one of my tips includes having an emotional attachment to whatever that goal or commitment is in order to stay with it, because then you're much, much more likely to follow through when there's that emotion attached to it, especially when it's from the heart. And number 3, you're going to have determination, because, of course, obstacles will come. I don't know anyone at the top that has said, I got here without facing an obstacle. That is part of life. And I'm not going to lie. I have obstacles all the time. I always have confessions. Here's my confession of the week. It's been a rough week. I have really struggled to be positive this week. There's multiple things that have happened, and I've really had to pull myself up and tie my running shoes really, really tight and get my head out of my butt because it's just been a really rough week. So we don't all get there. The benefit of having done what I've done for so long is I know that I can't drop the ball, because if I do, the downside or the consequences are going to come several weeks from now. And I can't do that. I can't do that to my people. I can't do that to myself. I can't do that to my family. I'm already committed to these goals that I have set, whether it's a business goal, whether it's a personal goal. I've learned that I have to push through it, because at some point I'm going to regret it if I don't. So here's my tips for tonight. Hopefully I'm helping somebody. Again, it's so easy sometimes when we're only accountable to ourselves to justify things. I think it's really important to find someone that you can be accountable to. That is the job of a good coach. Or just reach up, find someone who is where you want to be. Be careful about setting your sights too high. Not that you shouldn't think that you can't get there, but make sure that whoever it is that you're looking for advice, or, because this happens a lot, advice, or to really kind of emulate them, that they are someone who is where you want to be. I find it super, super funny that my clients come to me all the time going, well, some guy in the gym said that I'm doing this wrong. And I'm like, does he look like you want to look? Well, no, he's kind of got a pot belly. And I'm like, then why the hell would you listen to him? And then I ask, and where was his exercise science degree from? Because honestly, there's so much BS, like all the time. My favorite is, oh, you're a girl, you shouldn't lift heavy. I'm like, well, first of all, is he a girl? And at what point did he learn that? Because it's not true. Anyway, it's really, anyway, I go through some crazy stuff. And I have very little patience for some of the garbage that comes my way, but we deal with it as it comes. So find somebody that you can be accountable to is a big part of it. But I think one of the best tips I can give you, no matter what your goal or what your situation is you have to know your why. Why is it that you want to get to that point? Why is it that you're with the person that you're with? Why is it that you want to lose weight, get fit, be healthy? Why is it that you want to start your own business? You have to have a why. If you can't answer that question, you shouldn't even commit to that in the first place. Because again, that emotion, the incredible commitment that's required, you got to know why. Because when you're failing or you're discouraged, you have to be able to come back to that reason in order to keep going. I'm going to tell you from experience. Number 2, you have to not only define your goal, and it needs to be pretty detailed. Don't just say, I want to be a millionaire. Well, okay, how are you going to get there? You have to define it, and you have to have a timeline for it, because otherwise, you're going to flail and you're not going to get where you want to go. So anybody who I work with, one of the first few things when we talk about goals, we talk about that they have to be measurable. Right? Because of course I'm working with clients who are usually trying to make a healthier lifestyle change. And it's great if they want to feel better. That's definitely a benefit and a side effect, but I can't measure that. So I need to know, what is it that's measurable? And of course, for those of you that know me, it's usually not a number on the scale. It usually needs to require something a little bit different. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be realistic, right? The whole, I'm going to drop 30 pounds in 30 days. Is that possible? I'm like, maybe, but you're probably going to be dead, and I'm not the trainer to do that. But, so it has to be something. Of course, for me, I want it to be sustainable. I'm more about a lifetime of health versus the short-term goal. Yes, I work with competitors. Yes, that is a situation that we deal with. It's a short-term goal that, they're reaching for. But in general, if they don't have the basics down, then there's no benefit to actually getting into that mode. But I also think it's important to reward yourself as well. So that's the other thing that we talk about. Goal timeline is important, but it's also important to get your head right. Your head's got to be in the game coming out of the starting gate. Know where you're going, know where you want to go, know how to get there, but also know that there are going to be stumbling blocks, and you've got to be able to get through it. Which brings me to my next one, which is a super good one. If I could give you any other piece of advice tonight, this is huge. Figure out your obstacles before they happen and figure out the solution. Right? That way, whenever you get there, it's not so much a stumbling block as it is maybe a stoplight, maybe a moment for you to figure that out. But if you've already kind of looked at the situation in advance and made some decisions and some plans in that situation, you're not going to have that downtime of, okay, well now I'm not motivated to do that. I don't know what to do. You don't want to have weeks where you back off your goal because you're so frustrated or you don't have an answer. If you already have it figured out, you're going to be so much more ahead of the game. So, case in point, okay, if my family brings home pizza and I'm really wanting pizza and I'm really committed to eating healthier and I'm waiting for my free meal in order to have some extra, slightly unhealthy foods, what am I going to do if my family brings home pizza? Figure it out. Are you going to, I make my family eat in their room, to be honest. Actually, the rule at my house is that I don't care if you eat it, but don't bring it home because I don't want to see it. And most of the time, actually, my family's pretty good. Almost everybody's on their own meal plan, and it's kind of come full circle. So all those years that they would eat garbage in front of me while I was competing, now when I'm like, hey, I'm going to bring home pizza, they're like, please don't do that. I don't want to smell it. So I just laugh because I'm like, been there. So if you figure out the solution to the obstacle before it even happens, it's a whole lot easier than trying to figure it out after the fact. And then, of course, we talked a little bit already about finding a way to be accountable. We obviously, when we're accountable to ourselves, so many times we just justify it or we give up. But if you have a workout partner that's waiting for you every morning when you're supposed to be at the gym at 5:30, or if you have someone who's checking in with you, doing measurements, if you have a business coach that you're working with so that those goals that you set for your new business, you can check in with them. And of course, you have to respond to them. Did you make it? Did you not make it? Did you do those things that you were supposed to do? Whatever that commitment or that homework was for the week. So hopefully that helps. Again, I think commitment is part of respect, especially when you're working in tandem with other people, because sometimes people are depending upon you for certain situations, and if you don't follow through, somebody else's success might be dependent upon that. Not saying that that's always the case or that that's always the worry, but you know what? I really try hard to be a woman of my word. If I say I'm going to be there, if I say I'm going to make it that commitment or make that work, I really do my best to do that. And I think today with all the social media and kind of, people who can hide behind all this, stuff online, that we just don't have the commitment or the respect or the values even that people used to have. Do I sound old? I think I sound like my mother. Actually, I don't care. You know what? I'm okay with it. I'm tired of looking out there and watching the garbage that happens, and then people can't figure out, why am I having this consequence? Well, you made a choice. Deal with it. Choices equal consequences, whether positive or negative. So if you make that choice, that's what happens. Anyhow, I don't mean to get totally off track tonight, but you know what? Be committed. Figure it out. Figure out your timeline. Give you some great tips tonight to make sure that you stay and remain committed. And if you have questions, be sure to reach out. I enjoy responding. Your questions and your comments really are how I get a lot of my topics, because you know what? We're all here to be happy. We're all here to lead great lives and to be something great, even if it's just in our own little world. That is okay. So have an incredible evening, and we'll see you next week.